Welcome back. Right now I'm here with Jayamin Pelpola from Moneyworkz. And how are you doing this morning?
Very good.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we start everything.
Okay, so professionally I'm an investment banker, investment manager, and now turned technology entrepreneur. Personally, I grew up in Sri Lanka, then moved to the UK and the US to do my studies and work there in finance, in investment banking and investment management, the boring stuff. And, now since 2014 and especially 2015, I've gotten into probably something which I like more doing myself. Basically, piggybacking on all of that experience which I've had working for somebody else, both in Sri Lanka and outside. But I'm enjoying it right now because I'm now working with a lot of young people. Probably I'm the oldest in the room actually now. Roles have reversed from 10 years ago. So that's a lot of fun. And being back in Sri Lanka is a lot. There's a lot to do and a lot to give back, I guess.
Yes, for sure. Tell us about Moneyworkz and how it began.
Okay, so Moneyworkz is a financial product aggregation platform. So it aggregates all financial products into one place, so the consumers have a choice. And we also have a value proposition for all our partners, which are the banks and finance companies, because we are a speedier, broader, cost-effective channel, digital channel for the banks and finance companies. And for the consumer, it is a place where you can tell what you want and see all the options available to you and make a decision very fast. We enable with that with a lot of information and insight. And then the biggest value proposition which we see is that the bank comes to you. When you actually pick a product on our side, it's not like a random email sent out to a bank or contact point. We have partnered with these institutions. You will get a call back, for example, within 4 to 6 hours of making that application on Moneyworkz. So we look at the full end, from discovering products on the platform to making the decision on the platform, then actually fulfilling that service by having the bank or the finance company come to the consumer.
And how would you say your startup has been, coming into this industry?
I think you're talking about the evolution from the
the
start
way back when it first started. Baby steps, how was that?
Yeah, so it's roughly, we in the public domain is about 1 year.
Okay.
Little bit less than 1 year.
Okay.
So the journey has been amazing. So within that 10-month period or 12-month period, we have been able to be the biggest digital acquirer for some of the banks in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
So going from zero base to being the biggest digital acquirer. So that is a massive achievement for us, but we continue to work hard to identify what do the banks require in terms of having a better business model, what do the consumers require, having a better value proposition. So we are focusing on 3 things. One is to make things speedy. Second thing is to make things convenient. The other one is to make things cheaper for overall the consumer and the banks in terms of getting the products out there, right? So we continue to innovate around those 3 variables, so as to speak. So the journey is very interesting.
Oh, that's amazing. And well, congratulations you coming up to this point. And Jayamin, tell us a little bit more about, starting up this business. What has so far been the most challenging moment for you?
I think the biggest challenge is your original idea will be subject to explosions. But it ends up when you go through executing the business, you have to accommodate a lot more complex variables than what your original idea was. So having the perseverance when things are not working out, as well as having the discipline not to entertain with all the opportunities coming out, that is the biggest challenge I think an entrepreneur faces. So that perseverance is very important.
Jayamin, tell us what the most challenging part has been, being in this industry.
So essentially, as an entrepreneur, and especially in finance, the most the biggest challenge you will face is the original idea which you have will be subject to change and explosion as you go on, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Basically, when you start off something, you will have an initial idea. This is what I want to do in the first year. Probably this is what I want to do in the second year in terms of expansion. But when new challenges come in, when you build new partnerships, new opportunities open up, and certain things which you originally thought were a lot of value adding to the consumer may not end up. So I think the answer to that, to face that challenge, is to do a lot of validation and testing as soon as possible and as flexible as possible. And then take those results and inform yourself, because there's a lot of false positives out there in the world. Because you come up with a new idea, they'll be like, oh, it's awesome, there's nobody's doing this in this particular industry, this particular country. But what you have to do is to take a lot of data with a pinch of salt. Always test what you do with the consumers, with the product information, with the data, with the performance data, and get that feedback as soon as possible and inform yourself for the next step. We did that successfully. For example, the original idea which we have was in terms of aggregation of investment products, for example. But when we do the math, it did not add up that investment products would be very profitable or sustainable. So we did a pivot in terms of getting into the lending side of things. So we started with credit cards then, took that data, and now we have the loans and leases on the platform where people can compare and get the particular specific customized products which they want from the financial institutions. So that journey was informed by data on profitability, consumer feedback, and looking at all the false positives which we got from the investing side, and really digging deep and looking at the profitability numbers, and then actually now it's growing massively. We have a lot of challenges in terms of growing. It's a good problem to have.
It's definitely good. And you know, sometimes when it comes to having an idea, when you want to start your own new thing and a brand of your own, it can be challenging when it comes to finances. And would you say financing has been an issue, and how easy was it with the banks?
Financing as in funding the operation,
funding the operation.
Funding the business?
Yeah.
How we look at it is quite different. So it helped that I come from an investor background previously. So I was on the other side of things before I actually became an entrepreneur, right? So I knew what kind of things investors would actually want to see, what kind of worries they have, so how we have de-risked that in the business. So I think funding becomes a thorn in your side, so as to speak, if you don't approach it appropriately. I think there are certain basic things which you have to do properly. One is you have to sequence your business very well. What it means is that when you start, sometimes it's cool to do a massive seed round. Like, oh, we did like a $1 million, $2 million seed round. Actually, the smart thing is to get less capital as possible at the start, not more capital in the start. Because when you give more capital, raise more capital out in the start, you are giving more of your business out. Right? So then that dilution means later on the entrepreneurs may not be motivated, a lot of unnecessary people may be in your business. So I think the first thing is don't get seduced by these massive seed rounds. Do a seed round only which is for bare minimum purposes. Okay? So then you can do then use that seed round to prove a particular milestone. So we actually use that to prove our first product and get the first rupee of revenue. Right? So we use that seed round to get into a revenue generating position. Right? After that, then we went for another round at a much higher valuation. Right? So then in that valuation also we did only the bare minimum and used that to going from credit cards and getting X number of customers. We now have about 150,000 people who have come to our site and used the site within 10 months. So we got to that level through the second round of the maybe a post-seed round, right? So stage your capital. Don't get seduced by massive rounds of capital raising, do it in a staged way, so you can actually manage that better.
Yeah,
be
I
smarter
mean,
about it.
I bet, because it's baby steps to everything, and I feel like that piece of information would be helpful to a lot of people, and which means, you know, sometimes you do things and you try to please the public, and you know, when it comes to technology, everything is just so fast in this modern world. Do you ever fear that your efforts would be outdated tomorrow?
That's a very good question, right? So, especially in this, we are in financial technology, and any sphere of technology moves very fast. So, you're always worrying whether what I do today and the investments which I make today, will it be outdated tomorrow?
Yeah.
So, what is the risk to us, the investors,
Because it could be a possibility.
our partners, right? Do they want to get involved with something like of yesterday?
Yes.
So, I think how we address that is trying to solve fundamental problems.
Okay.
Okay. So our business model, as I said earlier, is to solve three things.
Okay.
So making banking faster, making banking more accessible and faster, making banking more convenient, making banking more cheaper to everybody. Right. So even if I go 10 years, if I am focusing on making banking more speedier, nobody's going to come and tell, hey, we want something slow.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Right? So if I'm focusing on making banking and accessibility to banking cheaper, nobody's going to come and tell me, oh, we want something more expensive.
Okay.
Right? So, and I'm focusing on the third piece is the convenience factor. So if I'm trying to make things much more convenient for the consumer and for our partners, nobody's going to come and tell me 10 years later I want to make things more complicated and less convenient, right? So rather than focusing on product features, I think how we look at it is, we look at what are the fundamental solutions we are giving the fundamental problems like speed, cost and convenience. So we keep innovating around that as opposed to getting bogged down in particular features. We are very aware some feature which we introduced today may be outdated tomorrow, but we keep the focus on the three big pieces which we want to solve, which we know will be problems in the future as well.
And it means that you're constantly on the brink. So obviously another question that will come to your mind, you know, going through all this effort and everything, what really made you think of becoming an entrepreneur? Why entrepreneurship?
It's a very good question. Your thoughts, initial thoughts of the sexiness of entrepreneurship actually fades away and reality strikes, right? So for me, it was that I've done a lot of work on the areas which I thought I was good in terms of investment management, investment banking. So the next natural step was to see what can I create, as opposed to what piece of the pie I can do. When you're working, it feels like what is the piece of the pie I can take.
Yes.
But when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of shift your mentality. So what is the pie I can create? Not take part of that pie, but what is the pie which I can create? So that shift in mentality is what drove me there. But going in that journey, it's very it's a battle. What you realize is a battle with yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, all the challenges which come up, all the issues which come up, you have to be resilient a lot. Your desire to create, you have to be prepared up here.
Be prepared.
Your desire to create has to be bigger than the fear of failure.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, and you have to continuously take that to yourself.
I believe that. I believe it's a constant talk with yourself. And another thing is, you have your own establishment going on, and like when it comes to work, when it comes to your office space, what's the craziest thing you've done at office?
Okay. So I don't think I can tell like the craziest thing I've done at office on camera.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. So let's settle for like the second.
The second craziest. Go for it.
Okay. This actually happened in London. We actually broke a computer playing or putting golf during the weekend when I was supposed to be working.
Oh wow!
So this actually happened. I I should not tell which office exactly. It happened in London.
I would, yeah, definitely classify that as crazy.
So the issue is like you can't replace it, right? So
Yeah.
you had to report it, and they're like, what happened? I'm like, oh.
The embarrassing parts come through.
Yeah, so and every piece of equipment in that office was like serial numbered and recorded. So like replacing that by myself was not like possible, right? So I had to report it. Then what happened? I had to explain, come up with a very, very weird explanation. And then,
Now I'm really curious about the first thing. Maybe you can tell me afterwards.
That's awesome.
But one more thing, since we are on the founder, we're speaking of founders and you are one. If you had the opportunity to have dinner with a founder that you admire, who would it be?
From a current context of founder, current generation of
anything.
entrepreneurs, okay. I guess overall it would be, I mean, from the entire generation of entrepreneurs, maybe like Edison.
Okay.
The amount of innovations he's done, the amount of patents he has got, including from electricity and amount from the electric bulb to the power plants to everything else. I think I would like to see how his brain works.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
he seems to be able to apply his smartness to various problems. Because as we go on in life, we tend to go into particular silos, right?
Yeah.
And be specialists in those silos.
Yeah.
But it seems when we look at what he has done, it's like he has applied his smartness, intelligence, diligence to many areas of solutions.
It's
So I
true.
would love to actually see that.
I bet it would be such an interesting conversation too.
But when you talk about founders, I think there's another aspect. It's not only about entrepreneurial founders, right? Like I think there are, like for example, certain religious leaders came in this world and fundamentally changed how people thought.
Yeah.
Right. For example, like I mean, I'm a Buddhist by religion, but when I look at how Lord Buddha came into this world and fundamentally changed how people thought from like relying on external factors to actually understanding your own self. Like, that's like a fundamental shift which happened 500 BC, right?
Yeah.
So that how they fundamentally changed where people think. Edison was introducing new stuff of new ways of doing things. But for example, when you look at founders of religions, they change how people think of themselves. So I think both of those factors are really.
Jayamin, I want to ask you one more question. You know, being an entrepreneur in Sri Lanka, why would you say you've picked Sri Lanka right here and right now at this time to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, right? So even when I look at my business model, it is applicable in many countries, many destinations. Why did I pick here? Because I love this country. I think the talent in this country is awesome, especially the young talent coming through. Of course, currently speaking, our politicians and radical religious beliefs are letting us down. But in terms of the talent pool available in this country, the inspiration I get from working with young people is just amazing. I think we have, like, for example, one of the youngest teams in the industry. Like, our average age is less than 26. So I think our average is 25 currently. I'm like the oldest, I'm still like all the way out there. But learning from those young people has inspired me, and it also gives me the opportunity to give something back to them, because they're smart, they're learned. But if you can give them some good guidance, good exposure, I think they can do wonders. So I have faith in the younger generation in this country, and now the ecosystem for entrepreneurship is also developing in this country, right? Like spaces like Colombo Cooperative is coming up to enable this journey for entrepreneurs, taking some risk off the table, because you don't have to invest in like high amounts of capital to build a place, which actually was a burden for us as well. So that flexibility in the ecosystem is also coming through now. So talent combined with the evolution of this ecosystem, I think will do well for this country.
Well, thank you so much for letting us pick into your brain, and I really wish you have the best of luck, and hopefully have the dinner with some future founders too. They would say that they want to have dinner with you, probably. Yeah, so I wish that for you.
I try to eat healthy these days, so I don't know how that will go down.
All right, thank you so much, Jayamin from Moneyworkz.
Okay, thank you.